We are back with ESPN Cricinfo Runorder, and my God, what a panel we have before us. I'm handing out a debut cap on Runorder to Ian Chappell. That's probably one of my greatest achievements in the history of my career at Cricinfo. Chappelli, what are you doing here?
Well, I'm hoping to enjoy myself, Ronak, and put up with some of your usual barbs.
Yeah, thank you very much. Still in fine form. First ball driven for 4 by Ian Chappell. But that question is more appropriately put to the editor-in-chief. What are you doing here, Sambit Bal? Sanjay Manjrekar and Akash Chopra are not used to seeing you on this platform.
Oh, that's because Ian Chappell is here.
Oh, shocking.
Thanks, Sambit.
Let's get our first conversation, and it's about what seems to not go away in Australian cricket. Everything in the aftermath of Newlands 2018. It's been nearly 3 years. Cameron Bancroft was interviewed recently, and after being pressed on the issue, he said, well, you know, it's self-explanatory that the bowlers, insinuating that the bowlers knew what was going on. Cricket Australia responds by saying we're always welcoming players with new information. And the bowlers themselves responding with a quite a long detailed statement talking about how they had nothing to do with it, etc., etc. Now, the question we have, and we'll probably start with Ian Chappell on this, is whether Australia should just move on from Cape Town or whether all of this can still go on. Chappelli, first thoughts.
Well, I mean, I think the problem really revolves around the fact that the survey that they did, Cricket Australia, it wasn't. I think what they set out to do was just look at the Cape Town test and nothing else. And I think they got the answer that they wanted, and therefore not having done a thorough review of the whole thing. In other words, all right, we know what happened at Newlands, but what led to what happened at Newlands and who was involved? And really, until they clear the air with that, I think it's going to keep cropping up. And it appears as though they think that if you hide it under the carpet, it will disappear. But they should know by now that that doesn't happen. It always comes back to bite you. And there have been a few suggestions that when David Warner retires, he's going to write a book and he's going to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And so with that sort of hanging in the air, I don't think there's any way this thing's going to die.
Okay, first thought, Sambit?
I mean, nobody's surprised that it's back, in the sense that somebody at some point was going to talk. And you had to, even then you had to think that it can't be just 3 players. It had to be, I'm not sort of doubting anybody's statement, or I'm not suggesting anybody's lying, but it's just incredulous to believe that nobody else knew. I don't know. I don't really know how you apply closure to something like this, because things are going to come out and they will be discussed. And I don't even know what you do now.
For starters, if we all thought it was, at least from these parts, we thought it was an overreaction, Sanjay, and we have admitted that there are graver sins committed in cricket for which we've not seen this sort of punishment. In which case now, does just going back and looking to charge more players or looking to dig for more dirt do justice to this? Should it just be a closed chapter now, as far as you're concerned?
I think it's time that you just end the chapter and not react to it. It's not match fixing. It's not spot fixing by any player. And that has happened in the game. And I guess the Australian players involved were just unfortunate that it happened at a time when there was this, feeling within Australia about the way Australians played their cricket. They were a champion team winning matches, but they didn't quite like the way they conducted themselves on the field. So I guess that pressure was building on Cricket Australia, on the players, to set an example as people as well, as role models, along with winning titles. And this happened at the time. And one of the things that Australia, being a sporting nation, and they pride themselves on being a sporting nation of some repute, is cheating. Is something that they have zero tolerance for. So this was a bit of cheating that happened. The odd, sledging and emotions going out of control is something that they can understand. So I think just looking at it, taking a larger view of the whole episode, I think it's time to just, put an end to the issue.
Akash?
The fact is that it will keep coming up. Whether we stop talking about it. In fact, nobody was talking about it till Cameron Bancroft came out with that statement that it is self-explanatory. It's naive to believe that it is not there happening right now when you're even stopping people from using saliva to shine the ball. How are the bowlers supposed to shine the ball? You need the saliva, right? But that's not there anymore. Are there other means not being used already? We don't know. We'll never be privy to that knowledge. So the high moral ground that was taken at that point in time by a lot of former cricketers as well, I felt that a few of them had access to grind, so they were just doing that, playing to the gallery. They were all a part of the same cohort. They have done the same in the past. So the fact is that we may stop talking about it, and we had. Let's be fair, nobody actually spoke about it for over a year. But now the moment you open the can of worms, all of us are going to jump onto it and then have an opinion. And that's why we are having this Runorder, aren't we?
Yeah, fair enough. That point was referenced by the bowlers in their statement, Cummins, Hazelwood, Stark and Lyon, where they said even the umpires didn't change the ball. So if they didn't know what was going on, how do you expect us to know the ball was in perfectly good condition?
If you look closely at that statement that the bowlers made, they were only talking about that incident.
Yes.
They were very careful to only mention that incident. I think Australians they're a bit deluded when it comes to sport in this country. They're very quick to say that we don't cheat and we don't fix games and things like that. And I'm not sure how you can ever be categorical about those sort of things. But the Australians, having deluded themselves that Australians don't cheat, suddenly when they were caught cheating and caught so red-handedly, then I think that caused such a furore in Australia that Cricket Australia thought, crikeys, we've got to do something really serious here.
I mean, I think once the actual incident at Newlands happened, Australia had to take full responsibility because it was so blatant. But we have to remember, just before that tour of South Africa, there was an interview with Darren Lehman. And it seemed like the Australians were quite convinced that the South African team was also tampering with the ball. And so I think that maybe one of the issues is that if they go back now and start relitigating the entire series from the beginning, they may have to make allegations again that, listen, it was the South Africans who were doing it as well, and therefore we also did it. And maybe they wanted to avoid that, which is why they just focused on that test and said, okay, listen, we've been caught red-handed, so we'll take full responsibility and not go back and make accusations against the other side as well.
Yeah, but they're not going back only. They cancelled the South Africa tour this time. They didn't mind the virus in other parts of the world, but they're just never going to go back to South Africa. That's what they've learned from this.
I just want to know now that everybody knows that Warner is writing a book, what's going to be his relationship with his teammates who might not like what will come out.
Cricket Australia has found themselves in a fix, let's be fair, because whenever the Warner book comes out and he's got some damaging revelations to make and all of that, but ICC has a law for it, right? Every offense has a law. So you have got those rules, you punish the players according to the gravity of that crime and then just move on. But when you go overboard with it, then you open up Pandora's box. It will get opened again many times over. Once somebody's career is done by, he's writing a book, whether it is Warner or somebody else, whoever feels slightly aggrieved at some stage, he is going to come out and say, I know this. So this is not going to go away because it's already been blown way out of proportion.
I think about 20 years ago, I said what they should do is go to the captains of every country and say, you go back to your team and you get a list of things that they think will help the ball swing. Then you send us all these lists. We'll go through the list and we'll come up with one thing, and it'll be a sensible thing, not using a bottle top to scrape the ball. It'll be something viable, but we'll give you one thing that will help you to swing the ball, and everything else will be illegal. Now, I think if you did that, maybe I'm naive, but I think if you did that, you'd stop all the other shenanigans because you're giving them something in return. And let's look at the way the laws are written. They're pretty well always written in favour of batsmen, and that fact leads to things like, if you go right back from underarm bowling to sidearm bowling to overarm bowling. That all came about because the bowlers said, this is better. And then up here, that's better. So they kept doing it even when they were told they shouldn't do it. Then we go to body line and we go to chucking and we go to ball tampering. They all come about because the balance is too much in favour of the batsman, and the bowlers eventually say, we've had enough, we're mad as hell, and we're going to do something about it.
Okay, this usually happens in a discussion on Newlands 2018. It becomes about the larger issue. And I can only take away from this, Chappelli, that you rejecting the MCC membership was a complete change in the moment of the history of cricket. You should have taken that membership, become a rule maker, and look where we would have been today. Don't you regret that today in 2021, Ian Chappell?
If I have taken it up, Ronak, I would have been a lawmaker, not a rule maker.
Thank you very much, Ian Chappell, Akash Chopra, Sanjay Manjrekar, Sambit Bal, and Justin. Will this ever go away? Maybe not, but we'll come up with the sequel of this video after David Warner's book is announced. Hopefully, we'll have the same cast on that day too.